Interesting portion this week. Really interesting because we're talking the parsha is Balak, which is a king, right? But the focus and the emphasis of this parsha doesn't really talk that much about Balak as it does talk about Balaam or Bilaam, right? And so we see these two guys, their paths meet, and what happens? I mean, they try to form an alliance to do what? And what's the cost? What happens? And what does God do? And you know, one of the things that we see, God will fight for his people. And we have to understand, if he goes before you, there's nothing that you can, just rest in that. If he goes before you, it doesn't matter what the battle looks like. It doesn't matter what's going on. But we need to follow him. There are times when we can step outside of what he desires for us, and we can step outside of a place of safety and step outside of a place of protection, which is kind of where this parsha is at the end of it and the beginning of next week's parsha. Okay? But yet, what we find is that Balak tried to hire Bilaam to curse Israel, and when he went, he couldn't do it because Yah restricted him. Okay? Even if he was able to speak the words, I fully believe that Yahweh would be able to turn the curse into a blessing before it would reach Israel, but it didn't even make it out of Bilam's mouth. Okay? So there's a lot to be said here. All right? So I'm not going to try to prolong the point as we are, just kind of jump into it because there's a couple things I feel we need to mention. And this parsha, as they all are, is very relevant for our life, very relevant for how we are to worship the Father, very relevant to how we're to live day to day and how we are to conduct our affairs in the world. So there's a lot to be said here. All right? And it's really a long portion if you really dug deep into it. And if you really take a good look, you're going to see we need discernment. Above all, we need discernment because we need to be able to see what the Father's really trying to tell us. And we have an adversary who is going to try to distract you. You know, there's a reason why it's called an angel of light, you know, because he tries to grab our attention. You know, even Hasatan can be like an angel of light, so he doesn't always come to you as, ooh, mean, evil, hatred, wicked. No, so a lot of times he'll like come to you as something that you want, something you desire. You know, like it says in the scripture, like James says, you know, you sin because of, it's where your desire is. And so he baits you with your own desires and leads you astray. And we see that's kind of what happens later in this parsha. Like I said, end of this one, beginning of next one, okay? So without jumping really much into that, you ready to get into this? I think we should just kind of get into it and get the ball rolling, you know? All right, so here we go. Numbers 22. We're going to start in verse 1, so we're kind of setting up. The people of Israel set out and encamped in the plains of Moab beyond the Jordan at Jericho. So here they are, just kind of setting it up. They're right about there, okay? They're getting on the edge. They're in the plains, and they're getting ready to go in. They're getting stationed for where they're supposed to be, which means right when they're right about where the Father wants them and tells them to get ready to go in, who tries to come to distract them? See what I mean? So it's no coincidence, right? All right, keep going. Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all Israel had done to the Amorites, and Moab was in great dread of the people because they were many. So Moab was overcome with fear of the people of Israel. And Moab said to the elders of Midian, "This horde will now lick up all that is around us as an ox licks up the grass of the field." So Balak, the son of Zippor, who was king of Moab at that time, he sent messengers to Bilaam, the son of Beor, at Pethor, which is near the river in the land of the people of Ammah. To him he said, "Behold, a people has come out of Egypt. They cover the face of the earth, and they are dwelling opposite me." Verse 6, "Come now and do what? Curse this people for me, since they are too mighty for me. Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them from the land. For I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and he whom you curse is cursed." Okay, there's a few things to point out here. First off, Balak is saying, these people are way too numerous for me, and if they decide to come in, you know, we're going to have a problem. I need you to curse them so that I can attack them. Okay? So where have we heard that kind of thinking before? Oh, yeah, Pharaoh. You know, because Pharaoh said, these people, they're too numerous for us. Let's enslave them before they get a chance to realize they can whip us. Okay? And so that's what happened. So Israel became enslaved. Again, we know that Yah delivered them. But it's kind of interesting how these words are kind of echoed here one more time, right? Now, the interesting thing here is that he sends messengers to Bilaam. Bilaam was a prophet, okay? He was a seer. I'm not going to say he was a prophet of Yahweh, because we do know that there are people who have spiritual gifts that are not submitted to Yahweh. They use their gifts for their own pleasures, their own desires, or to try to mislead people for their own devices. Okay, so there's a lot to that. But I'm not going to say he's a prophet of Yahweh, but he was a prophet. He had a gift. I mean, because he noted, if you bless someone, you curse someone, we notice that things happen. Okay, so he was in tune into the spiritual realm. It's like, there's the thing, guys. You need to be careful of spiritual people, okay? What spirit are you talking about? See, that's the point. We need to make sure that we are in tune with the Spirit of the living God and in tune with His Ruach HaKodesh, and that we're not listening to any other spirit, because that will bring deception. That will deceive, all right? All right, so the job was to curse Israel, but there's a problem with that. He can't curse Israel because Yahweh said He blesses them. All the way back to Abraham. Remember that? All the way back to Abraham, He says, and I will make you a great nation, I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless you, and curse him that curses you. And in you shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So here's the thing. Yahweh said to Abraham and his descendants, I will bless them that blesses you, curse him who curses you. So what's going to happen if Balaam goes in and tries to curse Israel? Yeah, he's essentially bringing a curse on his own head, right? And Balak, for trying to make it to happen, of course, bring a curse in on himself as well, right? So Balaam tries to say, okay, he's kind of Switzerland in the deal, he's kind of neutral. He doesn't really care one way or the other. But now, since Balak comes to him and says, hey, I'll pay you if you come curse these people, see, now he has an interest. See, so like he couldn't care any other way. He had nothing to do with Israel, and he knew who Israel was. He knew who the God of Israel was, but he had nothing to do with them until there was money involved. All right, so let's keep going. So back to Numbers 22, verse 7. So the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian, they parted with the fees of divination in their hand, and they came to Balaam, and they gave him Balak's message. And he said to them, lodge here tonight, and I will bring back word to you as Yahweh speaks to me. So the princes of Moab stay with Balaam. So this is kind of interesting, because he said, come stay with me, and I will see as Yahweh speaks to me. He said, as Yahweh speaks to me. Okay? So first off, he's trying to make himself out to be something that he's not. He's trying to make himself out to be like, oh yes, me and Yahweh, we're buddies, I'm very familiar with the God of Israel. Let's see if He will allow me to curse them, kind of a thing, right? And so he says, let me see if I can do this. And what happens, and again, keep this in mind, who are the ones who came to him? Elders. Elders in the land, right? So how does this play out? It kind of plays out in such a manner where Balaam is saying, Yahweh came to me and He said, I can't go with you. That said nothing about don't curse them because they are blessed. He just says, Yahweh says, I can't go with you. Now kind of notice how that is. I can't go with you, so you all go run back to Balak and tell him if he wants me to come, he needs to offer me more money, and he needs to send men of higher prestige. You need to recognize who I am. You want me to do something for you? You need me. I don't need you. Kind of a thing, right? So there's a lot here to be said. Numbers 22:9. So God came to Balaam and He said, who are these men with you? Okay, and He's kind of setting them up. And He told him, do not go with them. He did say that. Do not go with them because Israel is blessed. You cannot curse them. But when Balaam told these men that, he said nothing about that second part. He kind of left that out because Balaam thinks, we're negotiating. They weren't negotiating. Yahweh said, don't go. Right? Okay, and He said, you can't curse them. Right? Now, a couple of things that are very interesting. This phrase where it says, and God came to Balaam, Veyavo Elohim El. Now, this phrase, but using these words, this phrase, and came Elohim to, this phrase is only used in two other instances that we see in the Torah. Both times, It is to restrain someone from an action. Interesting. Because to Abimelech, Genesis 20, verse 3, God gave to Abimelech in a dream, and he said, behold, you're a dead man. Wow. And why? Because the woman whom you have taken, she is a man's wife. Wow. So he basically said, you're going to die. You need to give this man his wife back. Right? Okay. So that's pretty extreme. Right? So, and God came to and said, you need to stop what you're doing. Second time, God came to Lavan, the Aramean, in a dream, and he said to him, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Remember when Yaakov was leaving and he's going out of the land, and Lavan's going out and he tries to stop him? Well, on his way out, he has a dream, and Yahweh tells him, don't you dare curse him. You know, he's going. You don't say anything to him either way. You've got nothing to say about this. Right? So again, so we have no reason to believe this is any different here. And Yahweh came to Balaam, and what's the purpose? To tell him, don't you dare. Right? So what happens? Let's look at this. We're going to kind of jump ahead here. Understand this. We'll just kind of Reader's Digest it. He sends back men of higher rank, offers him more money, of course, you know. And he goes to set out, and Yahweh says, okay, look, go, but you better say only what I tell you to say. If you don't, I'll kill you. And I think he goes, yeah. And you know the story. The donkey moves out of the path, and he says, you know, he starts yelling at the donkey. He starts beating the donkey. The donkey's like, why are you beating me? You know? And he says, because you made me look like a fool, as if talking to the donkey doesn't, you know. So anyway, so he says, because you made me look like a fool, and he's all this back and forth. And then his eyes are opened, and he sees the angel of the Lord in the path with his sword drawn. Said, I would have killed you if he hadn't moved. And again, a blow to his pride, because saying, you say you're this great seer, and you see all these things. This animal saw me, you didn't. You know, and you almost died because of it. So at this point, Yahweh has Balaam's attention. He says, okay, I'll go, but I can only speak what you say. Got it. Right? So he goes, and he meets the king. The king goes out to meet him, and he takes him to 3 different places, and we're going to look at these places of cursing. Okay? Because these places, they're not just different places are there. He's trying to show him 3 different perspectives of the people to try to get him to look at 3 different ways at Israel to see if he can curse them. In other words, he's trying to find some kind of leverage, some kind of something to sneak in there saying, see, these people aren't blessed. They're not all that. They're really not upright. They're not righteous. Just do what you got to do. Just speak the curse for me. See, they're not. There's no way these people are blessed. See, so he's trying to show him different perspectives, and so that he can get him to curse them. All right. So the first place we're looking at, places of cursing, Numbers 22:39. Balaam went to Balak, and he came to Kiryat Huzot. Kiryat Huzot means the city of streets. So when I say the city of streets, especially in an ancient town, an ancient city, what do you think? Markets, stores, people, commerce, things moving, prosperity, you know, town streets. What happens in the town streets? I mean, that's where business was conducted, right? So we're talking prosperity. We're talking how they deal business. We're talking about all these places, all these. Think about this for a second, okay? He wants them to look at them and try to see how they are like this. So 3 places that are mentioned here. Different perspectives of looking in. 1, the high places of Baal. 2, the field of Zophim. And 3, the top of Peor. So he takes them to Kiryat Huzot, and then from there he goes to the high places of Baal, which is not far from where he was, right? So he's looking at the prosperity, looking at the markets, looking at the people, looking at these things, and then he wants them to view Canaanites as influencing the physical growth, material prosperity, all of this. And the question is this: would Israel be prosperous and grow without the approval of Baal? Because this was the idea. I mean, someone was blessed, it was because their deity allowed them to be blessed. Someone was cursed, it was because their deity allowed them to be cursed, kind of a thing. So Baal was the god of this area. Will Israel be blessed without Baal? Kind of a thing. Right? Well, what did God say? You cannot curse them because I have blessed them. Right? They are blessed. All right. So what happens? Numbers 22:41. So in the morning, Balak came to Bilaam, and he brought him to Bamot Baal, which is the high places of Baal. And from there he saw what? Did he see all Israel? No. What does it say? He saw a fraction of the people. Vayira and Misha Kitzah. Or Kitze. Kitze is a small, okay, a fraction of Ha'am, a fraction of the people. So if he saw a fraction of the people, where would he be looking? On the outermost edges, extremity, or parts of the camp. Who would have been at the outermost edges, extremity, or possibly even outside the edges of the camp? Those who would have been unclean. So those are the ones that were either outside the camp or the ones on the edge of the camp, kind of hanging around the edges of the camp. You know, where was all the grumbling and the complaining and all these things happening? Around the edge of the camp, people who were not necessarily out, but they weren't all the way in either. Right? So here they are. So he's like, look at these guys. You know, look at how they're, these fraction of people. It's just a small portion of the people, but the people in themselves are fraction. They're divided, you know, and then their loyalties. They're not really in, they're not really out. I mean, look at this. This is the people. You can surely curse these guys, right? Numbers 23:8. How can I curse whom God has not cursed? How can I denounce whom Yahweh has not denounced? For from the top of the crags I see him. From the hills I behold him. Behold, a people dwelling alone and not counting itself among the nations. Who can count the dust of Yaakov or number the fourth part of Israel? Let me die the death of the upright and let my end be like his. Pretty interesting, isn't it? How he says these are a people, they're dwelling alone. They're not counted among the nations. They have nothing to do with the rest of the nations. They're not like the rest of the nations. And so, I mean, there's nothing that's going to happen here. God is not going to let me speak a curse toward them. Because he said he has blessed them. They're here where he has told them to be. So, no, that's not going to happen. Deuteronomy 26:18. Yahweh has declared today that you are a people for his treasured possession as he has promised you, and that you are to keep all his commandments. And he will set you in praise and in fame and in honor high above all nations that he has made, and that you shall be a people holy unto the Lord your God as he has promised. He has set you above the nations, not to be counted with the nations. And when he say not to be counted with the nations, it kind of makes me think of the sheep and the goats. Because when all are standing before Yahweh and he separates the sheep and the goats, have you noticed he says the nations that are sheep and goats, not necessarily just the individuals that are sheep and goats. Well, who's the nation that is the sheep? Who are the nations that are the goats? Something to think about, isn't it? Okay, so places of cursing, again, we're looking Numbers 23:13. So Balak says to him, okay, you're not seeing this right. Come with me to another place, right? Let's go somewhere else. This place isn't working for me. Let's move on, right? So what does he say? Come with me to another place from which you may see them. You shall see only a fraction of them and not see them all, and then curse them for me from there. And he took him to the field of Zophim, Sadeh Zophim, to the top of Pisgah, and built 7 altars and offered a bull and a ram on each altar. So here, Sadeh Zophim, Sadeh is a field, and Zophim is a watcher or a diviner. Okay? So he took him to a field of watchers, a place of enchantments, if you will, a place for them to gaze at the skies and do their fortune telling and soothsaying and all these other things that are going. This field of watchers, a field spread out. In other words, the spiritual people. He took him to the place where their spiritual gifts are. It says, "Can you curse me, these people now?" Right? So what we see here is they are in the field of Zophim, the field of watchers or seers. Field many times represents being outside of Torah, or outside the walls of safety, or outside of protection. And the view from Israel, from the seers outside of it. Could you curse from here? What do the spiritual people have to say about Israel? What does he say? Numbers 23:18. So Balaam took up his discourse and he said, "Rise, Balak, and hear. Give ear to me, O son of Zippor. God is not man that he should lie, or a son of man that he should change his mind. As he has said it, will he not do it? Or has he spoken, and will he not fulfill it? Behold, I received the command to bless. He has blessed. I cannot revoke it. And he has not beheld misfortune in Jacob, nor has he seen trouble in Israel. Yahweh, their God, is with them, and the shout of a king is among them. Verse 22, God brings them out of Egypt, and is for them like the horns of the wild ox. Now look at verse 23. For there is no enchantment against Jacob, no divination against Israel. And now it shall be said of Jacob and Israel, what has God wrought? Behold, a people, as a lioness, it rises up, and as a lion, it lifts itself. It does not lie down until it has devoured the prey and drunk the blood of the slain. So he's saying, here he is in the field of seers, or in the field of watchers, and he says, there's no divination or enchantment or witchcraft that can stand against Israel. Aha. So what is Balak's response to all this? What goes on here? And what's to do with all the I mean, of course, Balak believes in all these things because he hired Balaam, right? Let's look at a couple things. Isaiah 54:17 says, no weapon that is fashioned against you shall succeed, and you shall refute every tongue that rises against you in judgment. This is the heritage of who? The servants of Yahweh, and their vindication is for me, declares Yahweh. So the wisdom or seers of the world is not like those among Israel. Absolutely not. Serve two different gods. Operate by completely different spirits. And we know that Yahweh gives wisdom. Wisdom is a spirit, you know. Yahweh gives wisdom. What does it say about it? James 1:5, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him. And think about Yosef. Yosef, it was testified of he has wisdom, and he was testified against Pharaoh's wise men, right? Pharaoh called all his wise men, and they couldn't do anything, which, by the way, the wise men and magicians is who Pharaoh called. Yeah. So here he is. Joseph is standing there, and Joseph is saying, it is God that gives interpretations. It's God that reveals. It is God that opens up. And what Pharaoh says, can we find anyone like him who in is the Spirit of God? So he testified here, the wisdom in Joseph and the Spirit of God is in Joseph. There is ungodly wisdom, though, but it's not from above. How does it work? James 3:13. So who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy, selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but it is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice. True? Yep. But, verse 17, but the wisdom from above is first what? Pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make what? Peace. Okay? So this is working in the wisdom and testifying of the Spirit of the living God. This is the wisdom that is from above. All right? Pharaoh had wise men and magicians that we see, and he used these as counselors, right? Genesis 41:8. So in the morning his spirit was troubled, and he sent and he called for all the magicians. The word there for magicians means horoscopus. Those who, they're searching the stars and fortune telling and doing all these things, right? The horoscopus and the wise men. And Pharaoh told him his dreams, and there were none who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Deuteronomy 18:9. So when you come into the land that Yahweh your God is giving you, you shall not learn to follow the abominable practices of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone who burns his son or his daughter as an offering, anyone who practices divination, or tells fortunes, or interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or a charmer, or a medium, or a necromancer, or one who inquires of the dead. For whoever does these things is an abomination to Yahweh. And because of these abominations, Yahweh your God is driving them out before you. You shall be blameless before Yahweh your God. For these nations which you are about to dispossess, listen to fortune tellers and to diviners. But as for you, Yahweh your God has not allowed you to do this. So again, this is acknowledging, spiritual people exist, but what spirit are they operating by? And they're not submitted to the Spirit of Yahweh. Okay? Leviticus 19:31. Do not turn to mediums or necromancers. Do not seek them out, and so make yourselves unclean by them. I am Yahweh your God. Leviticus 20, verse 6. If a person turns to mediums and necromancers, whoring after them, I will set my face against that person, and I will cut him off from among his people. And these are the ones, of course, who the world and the nations is trying to get to come against Israel, because Yahweh is saying these two things don't don't exist together. Okay? They don't operate together. Isaiah 8, 19 and 20. So when they say to you, inquire of the mediums and necromancers who chirp and mutter, should not a people inquire of their God? Should they inquire of the dead on behalf of the living? To the teaching and the testimony, or to the Torah and the testimony. If they will not speak according to this word, it's because they have no dawn. There is no light in them. So what does Yahweh say about the Zophim in Israel? The seers or the watchers in Israel? Zophim is the plural of Zaphah. Okay? And we see it in Ezekiel 3:17. Son of man, I have made you what? A watchman for the house of Israel. Whenever you hear a word from my mouth, you shall give them the warning from me. This is what Yahweh says regarding the watchmen of Israel. We speak only what Yahweh says. Doesn't matter what the field of seers are saying. Doesn't matter what else is going on outside the camp or what else is going on out in the world. We speak what Yahweh says. Balak's response? What? Look, man, if you're not going to curse them, don't bless them either, because that's what was going on, wasn't it? And Balaam's like, hey, man, I told you I can only say what their God allows me to say. Right? Numbers 23:25, Balak said to Balaam, do not curse them at all and do not bless them at all. But Balaam answered, did I not tell you all Yahweh says that I must do? Now notice he doesn't say he's doing it of his own free will or he's choosing to do it. He's saying, I have to. Because that's what Yahweh said. If you don't say what I tell you, I will kill you. Right? Because he could not speak a curse against Israel. Yahweh was protecting them. So next place for cursing, Numbers 23:27. Balak said to Balaam, come now and I will take you to another place. Perhaps it will please God that you may curse them for me from there. Now notice how he's putting it. Okay. Let's change perspective again. Let's go look somewhere else. Perhaps their God will allow them to be cursed over here. Right? Boy. It's like I was looking for downfalls, looking for loopholes, right? So, this is what he says. So Balak took Balaam to the top of Peor, which overlooks the desert. Peor is a waste of deified shamelessness. It's a lack of decency, a lack of modesty. Peor was involved with a cult of animalistic behavior, using man's most base thoughts and actions as modes of worship. Overlooks a wasteland. Baal Peor was worshipped by shameless acts birthed out of bestial aspects of human physicality. Primal instinct, animalistic behavior. The idea is mankind at its core is just an animal, so go ahead and act like one. This gives hint towards Darwinism, doesn't it? Balak was essentially asking, what is the attitude and the behavior of the people toward modesty, sexual morality, and the family? So this is where he takes him, to overlook. Numbers 24:1. When Balaam saw that it pleased Yahweh to bless Israel, he says, well, let's take them over to this place because then maybe over here their God will allow them to be cursed. And then he saw it pleased God to bless them over here. You know? So what happens? 2 Corinthians 9:8 says, God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times you may abound in every good work. And how did God say he wanted the blessing toward his people? Number 6:24, may the Lord bless you and keep you, right? Okay, so God desires to speak blessing toward Israel. He desires good things for his people. Okay? That's why he tells us the path to walk in, a path that gives life and blessing. Numbers 24. So when Balaam saw that it pleased Yahweh to bless Israel, he did not go, as at other times, this is interesting, to look for omens, but he set his face toward the wilderness. He didn't go to see omens or to do anything, but he looked over the wilderness, over the people. And what happened? Balaam lifted up his eyes, and he saw Israel camping how? Tribe by tribe. And when he saw Israel camping tribe by tribe, the Spirit of God came upon him. God wasn't just revealing omens or just showing him things or whatever, but when he looked up this time, the Spirit of God came upon him and dealt with him. Right? What happens? And again, even in here it says literally, Vathi alav ruach Elohim. The Ruach Elohim came upon him. And so he saw Israel camping tribe by tribe. The Spirit of God came upon him. When you say camping tribe by tribe, makes me think of a few things. Okay, first off, unity. Because they were camping in order. Camping in structure, camping according as Yahweh had set them in place, and they were all together as they should have been. So they're camping together, they're camping in order, and they're camping tribe by tribe and around the tabernacle. Right? Ezekiel 37:1. The hand of Yahweh was upon me, and he carried me out in the spirit of Yahweh, and he set me down in the midst of the valley, which was full of bones. Scattered all over the place, weren't they? What happens, though? So I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I prophesied, there was a noise, behold, shaking, and the bones did what? They came together, bone to bone. And he said to me, Son of man, these bones are what? The whole house of Israel. And they say, our bones are dried, our hope is lost, we're cut off our parts. So, but they're all coming together as the Spirit of God is speaking, and the prophet is speaking by the Spirit of God, and it's drawing all the people together, bringing order and bringing them all in to be connected, bone by bone by bone, and then the flesh comes upon them, and then the Spirit of the breath of life is breathed into them, and they are the whole people of Israel standing together as one. And I think that maybe Balaam saw some of this, because Balaam saw into the future. He saw different things regarding Israel and regarding Balak and what was going to happen to him, right? So it pleases Yahweh when we come together how? In unity. Is it not just when we come together, but we come together in unity, right? Psalm 133 says what? Hinei matov, right? Hinei matov u'malim shevet gam yachad. You see, you know it, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in unity. So what did Balaam say this time? Numbers 24:5. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanotecha Yisrael. How lovely, how good are your tents, Jacob, and your encampments, Israel. Isn't it amazing that as he looked over the Israel, camping tribe by tribe, camping together, that this blessing has come forward. And the blessing is still going forward every Shabbat, still spoken, still said. What is Tov? Good. But what is good? See, good means that something that has been there and it is functioning in the way that it was created to be. Yahweh created something in this order, it's functioning the way it is, and it is good. In the creation account of things, and God created, and it was good. Right? And then we see finally in Genesis 1:31, God saw everything he made, and behold, it was very good. Tov me'od. And it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning the sixth day. But in the creation account, God created and it was good. So what does it mean when something is good? It means it's functioning in a way that Yahweh designed it to be. In this moment, Israel, as they're overlooking Israel, they are there as they are supposed to be. Now, how do they stay there? That's a different question, right? Let's keep going. So the places of cursing against modern mankind. Can you see these places of cursing in the lives of people today? The places of attack by the teaching of Balaam. 1, growth and prosperity. 2, spirituality. And 3, morality. These are the 3 places that Balak took Bilaam to curse Israel. And these are 3 places where humanity is still under attack today. So what does it mean for people of Israel to stand against these things? We know that if we are walking with Yahweh and we are following his purpose and doing what he has said, we can be protected from these things. It doesn't mean we're never going to face any hardship or never going to see any calamity or turmoil or things aren't going to get rough. But I'm saying as a curse, these things aren't going to come upon us. Right? But how's the world doing with that? Growth and prosperity. Spirituality, are they just spiritual, or are they following the Spirit of God? Morality? Really? The proclamations of Balaam was not the problem, weren't they? What Balaam proclaimed was not the problem. The problem was what? His teaching. Because what we find is that after it was done, and Balak basically says, you cannot curse them, you ain't getting paid. And we read later in the scripture as well, that Balaam taught Balak how to put a stumbling block before Israel. It's like, I can't curse them, their God won't curse them, you can't curse them. Let's get them to walk outside of the realms of blessing God has for them so that they end up bringing a curse upon themselves. See? This is basically what happens. But the things that he spoke, the things that he prophesied, there was no problem with it because he did what God told him. He had to. So the problem wasn't that. The problem was what he taught. Now, what does it mean to teach? What does it mean to learn? Are we a disciple? You know, learning and disciple goes together. Because lamad is to learn. Talmid, same root word, same word, is a student. But talmid is the same word for a disciple. So, what teaching are we learning? What teaching are we allowing ourselves to listen to? 2 Timothy 4:2 says, preach the word, be ready in season and out of season, reprove, rebuke, and exhort with complete patience and teaching. For the time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to do what? To suit their own passions. And they will turn away from listening to the truth and wander off into myths, fables. So they're people like certain teachers that they like. And they like to hear certain things that comfort them of what they already think and believe. It's like, are we trying to learn or are we trying to feel justified in what we already think? See, there is a difference, isn't there? So when Balaam taught, he taught completely against the word of God. He didn't live for God. But yet when he proclaimed, he had to do what God said. Okay. The teaching of Balaam, what does it come down to? Revelation 2:14 says, I have a few things against you. You have some there who hold the teaching of Balaam, who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the sons of Israel so that they might eat food sacrificed to idols and practice sexual immorality. What was the teaching of Balaam? To put a stumbling block before Israel, which basically comes up to, you do not have to listen to the Torah to eat the food sacrificed to idols that's mixing your worship with idolatry and sexual immorality. Balaam's ideology, do not listen to Moshe or Torah. Mix your worship with idolatry and give in to the seduction of the world. Balaam's teaching. 2 Peter 3:16 says, as also in all of Paul's epistles, speaking in them of these things in which some are hard to be understood, which they that are unlearned and unstable twist, as they do also other scriptures, to their own destruction or for personal gain. What he's saying is that there are people who don't understand what the word is saying, that they will take things out of context and twist it to make it say what they want to say so that they can bring others and lead others astray. Got to be careful of what we are allowing ourselves to be taught. Romans 11:29. For the gifts and calling of God are without repentance. You know what that means? God has given gifts to all people, but it's up to you to submit it to him. A prophetic gift should have accountability. Who was Balaam accounted to? When he taught, who was he accountable to? Nobody. Isaiah 8:20 says, to the law and the testimony, they speak not according to this word, because there's no light in them. So what should he be teaching according to? The Torah of Yahweh and the testimony of his word and his life. 2 Thessalonians 2:9. So even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness and unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. Because they would not believe the truth, Yahweh turns over to let them believe the lie. Because we're not searching for the truth, we're searching for what we already want to think. See? And so this is what he's saying. And for this cause God shall send them a strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. But look at this. But we are bound to give thanks always to God for you, brethren, beloved of the Lord, because, why? God has from the beginning chosen you to salvation through sanctification of the Spirit and belief in the truth. What do we believe? What are we looking toward? What teaching are we looking to? If we are learning to the teaching of the Torah and the testimony, we're doing well. We're looking to see how his word applies to us today and how we apply these things in our life and how we are to live before a holy God as a holy people. But there's a world out there that is full of the teaching of Balaam. And it's trying to distract you. And it's trying to put stumbling blocks before you. And you have to be careful that you do not fall into these things. Okay? This is why we need discernment. Because we need to be sure that we are keeping our eyes open, but not looking towards Balaam, but keeping our eyes open, looking toward the one who has redeemed you, has delivered you, and has brought you out. Why was Balak trying to curse Israel? Because he was scared of them. Because he saw that their God cursed, or because their God blessed them, and he knew that if he hung around, it's not going to be good for him. And so he attacked them because God was with them. Guys, sometimes you come under attack just because of who you belong to. But understand, even in the midst of the battle, Yahweh is with you. So keep your eyes on him and keep it set him, and do not fall to the teaching of Balaam. Amen? All right, let's all stand.